A very good evening to you here in the Midlands. Wow, what a weekend it has been of FA Cup third round action. Welcome to the Midlands Football Podcast. We are streaming across many platforms right now, Facebook in particular. You find us on YouTube as well. I'm Ben Ellis. Welcome along. We are delighted for the first time to join a new member of the team, Gavin Longthorne, who is a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan, an old friend of mine, working in the radio business. And Gav, welcome along to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I was just about to say it's a lot getting the band back together, isn't it? Really.
Well, there's plenty of stuff. Plenty of stuff in the old archives for the stuff that we used to do. Nobody ever used to have to see our faces,
Yes.
but that's something kind of new that we've got to get used to. But as I say, been a big weekend of third round action in the FA Cup, and lots to discuss from the course of the weekend and a preview of what's still to come. Of course, we're going to start actually, Gav, with Wolverhampton Wanderers. In fact, I'm going to go back a bit further than just this weekend, because obviously on Monday, one of the most eye-catching, not just results, but I'm sure you'll be very proud to say performances of the Premier League season so far. Wolverhampton Wanderers going to Manchester United, and I'm from a Midlands football fan point of view, in that I'm not a Man United fan in any way, shape, or form. Those that know me know that score. Wiping the floor with Manchester United, and I was delighted to see it.
Yes, definitely. I mean, as you say, we'll get back onto today, but they showed signs of it today, following on from the performance on Monday night, which we also saw it earlier on in the season as well. That more attack-minded play, that more pressurised football, building it out from the back. But when you lose the ball, making sure that we're jumping on teams straight away. Lost that slight little bit the last few months. Unfortunately, we start to revert back to that counter-attacking, more defensive-minded football. I think you've got to cut the manager a bit of slack with that. I think from what he said, he wants his own players in there, but I think we've got to give him a bit of time to find how to win games in certain ways that aren't how he wants to play, if that makes any sense. But I'll digress. Going on to Monday night, the performance was brilliant. I mean, straight from minute one, they were capitalised on Manchester United. Look, Manchester United have got some good results since being under Ralph Rangnick, but the performances are still very questionable. And I think he went there knowing that we could go there and get something on that game on Monday night. And I think the performance showed it. Certain players who have had question marks over them, or me personally, I feel like Ruben Neves last season, he fell off the mark a little bit. And this season now we're starting to see that beast-like player in midfield, which I think he's got the potential to be that type of player more consistently. Other players as well. Raul Jimenez didn't get a lot of praise for his performance on Monday night, but I think his off-the-ball play and his hold-up play was the platform to bring other players into the game, the two wing-backs especially as well, who just terrorised the wing against the two full-backs of Manchester United. And look, make no bones about it, I think Manchester United are in a transitional phase. I think the way they want to play is nowhere near the mark, but we can't take anything away from Wolves. I think they went there on Monday night and they got the game plan spot on.
You give the example of Raul Jimenez there. He's now starting to look like the Jimenez post-injury, and that was a horrific injury, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, he was amongst one of the top strikers. It was looking like across Europe under Nuno, and obviously that hurt Wolves last season, really having Jimenez out of the frame, and you kind of realise that Wolves had reached the end of the line with Nuno, and so they replaced him with Bruno. Now, what I find interesting, and this, for those tuning in for the first time, Wolves is not my team. My team is Aston Villa. We'll get onto that, but I'm going to just sort of do a bit of a deep dive into what I've seen, what I like about Wolves, and then Gab, you can kind of say yes or no. But what I've learned, amongst the lowest goal scorers in the Premier League, but also the best defensive record in the Premier League this season. Now, you put those two things together and you think, oh, this is boring. This is why do we want to be watching this? But this is not a Tony Pulis, Sam Allardyce brand of football. When you look at something, and I haven't watched as much of Wolves as you have, but I was watching on Monday night, and I'm thinking, when you're doing something well, and you're doing it very well, then it is very effective, and you get a lot of praise for that. They don't score anywhere near enough goals, but they're fantastic defensively. It's not for the want of trying with the scoring the goals, is it? I mean, you will get the feeling that the goals will come.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's as I said earlier. I don't disagree with anything you said there. I mean, as I said, there's been performances. The one in particular to me is the Newcastle performance where we eked out a 1-0. There's been a couple of games where we've let a 1-0 lead slide as well, where unfortunately we've gone back to that way of last season. But I think the manager really is trying to press that onto the players now. I think you could see even today in the cup game, I think there's when players were in the middle of the park, I don't think he likes people standing around, not doing anything. I think he wants that pressing, attacking football. As you've said, it's not for the one to try and scoring goals. I think there won't be many Wolves fans that will disagree with me with this, but I think we're still missing that little number 10 magic man in midfield that can unlock the key a little bit as well. Some will go on to the Villa later, but I think someone, if he had anywhere near the form that he had for Liverpool, I think somebody like Coutinho that Villa have signed would have been ideal. Obviously, there's reasons that he isn't come to Wolves over Villa, but we'll get onto that later as we talk about Aston Villa. But yes, I mean, there's definitely a change there, and it's an interesting point as well. Also, when people talk about the back three or back five, whatever you want to call it, I think this manager really does want to transition into a back four eventually, so he can have that extra man in midfield. But at the same time, I think it's not giving him a bad headache, really, is it, to have this formation that he has now that is inherited from Nuno, but it seems to be working. I mean, 14 goals conceded, 14 goals for. It sounds absolutely bonkers. It sounds like if you split those two apart, it sounds like relegation statistics at this point of the season. But I think it's that organisation, that pressing play, and that just ethic that he's putting to the players, really, where I think if we do have a 1-0 and it's looking like a game where it's back to the wall, make sure you do not concede and just stay organised and keep your shape. But at the same time, I think, pardon me, he has that emphasis where going forward, it's bombs away, basically. He wants to make sure that we're pressing teams and attacking. We'll talk about, when we go into transfer talk later, obviously, we'll talk about Adama Traore. It's disappointing for me because I thought this manager and the way football is trying to instill in them, and the emphasis that was said as well, that he's trying to get them to play, I thought it would have suited him down to the ground. We'll talk about the performance today with him as well also, but it's disappointing from that standpoint with himself, but very, very impressed with the way that we started this season. As you say, Monday night was the cherry on the cake, really. I mean, going into the cup run, it's almost as if you're going into an international break, if that doesn't sound silly. So getting a good result going into that in the league gives you that momentum when you go into that next league game as well.
Did you go to the game today?
Unfortunately, I couldn't go today, but I did watch it. So I've took notes, put football in Brian on, and obviously we'll have a chat about that if you want to.
Yeah, of course, 3-0 win over Sheffield United. You can throw any cliches that you want around, potential banana skin, this, that, and the other, just coming out of the busy Christmas period. So a lot of the Premier League managers make changes and what have you. But on the face of it, and you can tell me more because you've seen it, a comfortable 3-0 win.
Comfortable-ish. They had their spells of 10 minutes once or twice in the game, which you're obviously going to get in cup games against teams with no disrespect to Sheffield United, but where there isn't that too much of a gap between leagues, you're going to get that in cup games because it's a one-off game. The first 5 minutes, they could have put a couple in the back of the net. Make no bones about it. I think we did get caught cold in the first 5 minutes a couple of times, but yeah, it was very, very assured performance again. I mean, there's a couple of one performance in particular. We'll go forward from what I said earlier about Adama Traore. It's a very disappointing performance from him today. I mean, you put 2 and 2 together and make 4. It's looking likely that he's going to be leaving this transfer window. So I don't know whether it's just a last hurrah or it's rotating the squad. But a couple of performances today which really took me eye. I've been one of the biggest critics of him since we signed him, Fabio Silva, but today he was absolutely immense. He created a few good chances. He didn't stop running the whole game. He held the ball up really well. He put a couple of nice flicks on to put people through out wide. Very, very puts a lot of confidence in him with that performance for me in particular now. Still think he could do with going out on loan this window, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think the manager even knows that. I think he's earmarked another striker to have as backup for Jimenez. I don't think it would hurt Fabio Silva to be playing and starting every week for a team. Having that run of 10 or 15 games. I know he's already had it where, unfortunately, last season when Jimenez got injured, but I think if he's developing on track how they want to, I think that is going to be something that's going to be very important for him now to have regular game time. Daniel Podence as well, who was immense on Monday night, was brilliant again today with his 2 goals. He was just a busy bee out wide. He didn't give the fullback for them any time to regroup or any chance to bring the ball forward. And really, it was a game where if you're playing a stronger team as we did, it's how it should have gone. As you said, the potential banana skins that you can have in the cup games. But apart from them having a couple of good chances and a disallowed goal, which, in my opinion, if you watch the replay of the highlights, Ben, and have a look back at it, I personally think that it was very controversial that it was disallowed. Billy Sharp got his foot to the ball as it was coming out the 6-yard box, and Dendoncker put his head down to head of the ball, and it sort of met. It's one of those ones where it's a grey area and it's a bit of a middle of the road argument with people whether it's a foul or not. Personally, I didn't think it was a foul, so it could have been a very different game at 1-0 if that wouldn't have been disallowed. But no, it was a very assured performance, and as I said earlier, it's performance you'd expect it to be with the 2 teams wide up. And who knows, it could be the foundation for another cup run as we had 3 years ago now.
Would you fancy it in the cup this year? I mean, there's got to be a lot of teams, and I suppose we'll get onto it. The problem is the FA Cup is ideal for clubs like ours, who are pretty much going to be secure in the Premier League, but are not going to break into that top 4. So, what really is there to play for in terms of success and silverware? The problem is that the teams at the very top of the league, your Man Cities, your Chelseas, although Thomas Tuchel does far too much complaining for me, but your Cities, your Chelseas, your Liverpools, they can play a second team or a third team, which would be good enough of going a long way in the FA Cup. And then if they were still getting through those earlier rounds with a second or third team, then you get to the semi-finals and final. They bring the big boys out. It's kind of what happened when Villa played City in the League Cup final a couple of years ago. City would have gone soft for a lot of the competition, and the final. Oh, well, the big boys are out, are they? Oh, that's great, and that's where you kind of find yourself. But Wolves, I mean, you mentioned the semi-final a few years ago. That was Nuno's big opportunity that was missed, as far as I was concerned. That they had Watford for the taking. And who knows? But that's ancient history now. So, but do you fancy a good run in it? I mean, Norwich at home next.
I mean, why not? Why not? Really. I think this season top 6 is going to be a bit too far away from us, and at the same time, with no disrespect to the teams that are down there fighting for it, I don't think we're going to be in a relegation battle either. But touch wood just in case, because how football works sometimes. So why not? Why not, really? I mean, we've still got a relatively small squad in terms of the manager's changed, but we haven't had too many incomings, and we haven't had a lot of bolstness, if that's a word I can use. I don't know if it's a word, but in the squad, really, to as you say, teams like Man City and Chelsea, even teams lower down than that, from them that are in the top 6 that have the luxury of doing that. We don't, but I think, as I said, why not? Today, I was expecting there to be a strong team put out from ourselves today, because I think from what I've read, what Bruno Lage was talking about a couple of days ago, he was considering it as their weekend game again, because obviously we had the break of a couple of weeks where we didn't play a game. So it's, in essence, nothing's really changed. It's still the weekend game for them. So playing a strong team was not an issue really, apart from, as you say, Fabio Silva stepping in for Raul Jimenez. I think it's not beyond the realms of possibility, improbable, not impossible, but who knows really. I mean, we'll get onto Villa in a little bit, but where would you stand from a Villa fan's point of view with that? Would you fancy a little cup run yourself, or? Hello.
As I say, I would disagree. I think, as I say, we'll talk into it in more detail. But I think Steven Gerrard will fancy it at Old Trafford on Monday night. He must have seen the issues that United have got, which were there for all to see in the Wolves game and other games. As you rightly say, we'll get onto that in a few minutes. In terms of getting back to league action in the Premier League, just looking ahead to the weekend for Wolves, Southampton at home. You can't take anything for granted in the Premier League. Obviously, Southampton are buoyed by their recent takeover, but no reason to not go in there thinking you've got a good chance of getting 3 more points.
No. I mean, Southampton are they're a dangerous team. Even though, I mean, a lot of people say that they're a team that seems to be ghosting the league at the minute. They're not challenging for the top 10, but at the same time, they're not relegation fodder. But that's nothing to be looking away from, really. I mean, this is a team that have got some dangerous players in there. As you say, a lot of teams in that league can't take it for granted playing them. So you hope that they take the momentum from the last league game from Man United in that performance, and they bring it forward into Saturday. I would be disappointed if we did lose it, I'm not going to lie. But the Premier League does throw these results out sometimes where you're not expecting them. But I mean, if players like Neves, if Podence, if he can stay fit, that's the one issue with Podence. I think he looks like a very dangerous footballer, and he looks like somebody that could be a real asset to Wolves in the next few years. But the problem is, it seems to be that you can't play more than 4 games without getting injured. So I think that's something you've got to keep an eye on. And if he stays fit, if Jimenez continues his form, even though he's not scoring, continues his good form as the focal point, and Neves plays how he did and bosses the midfield like he did against Manchester United, we should be getting something out of that game. As I say, you never know in the Premier League, but we should be getting something.
You with the West Midlands Football Live podcast. We're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter right now. We welcome your comments. You can leave them at the bottom of the screen. Zayad has got in touch with us and said hola, which is great. So we do welcome that, of course. Looking at the other results from a local perspective over the weekend, I'm going to say now before we forget, and we would be accused of not taking certain results seriously, and it is at Midlands, although we wouldn't normally talk about them. Congratulations to Kidderminster Harriers in their victory in the FA Cup over the weekend, and they've been handed a plum draw against West Ham in the 4th round. Absolutely. Congratulations to
them, and make no bounds about it as well. It'll help with the running of the club having that tie. So it's much deserved after the result, and it was a deserved result from what I saw as well. So congratulations to Kidderminster.
Absolutely, 2-1 victory against Reading in the FA Cup on Saturday. So the other results. The Battle of the Albions at the Hawthorns ended up in favour after extra time of the team from the Premier League. Brighton going out with West Brom going out, I should say, 2-1 defeat at home to Brighton, going down to 10 men as well. I'm not overly sure how much you're following things at West Bromwich Albion, but they ain't happy, the Albion fans, right now, because it seems to be the same story every week, and I get the feeling, particularly since the start of the season, when we have usually have Jonathan to give an Albion perspective, season ticket holder at the Hawthorns, on this podcast. But obviously he's not here now to give his side of things. But from the difference between the start of the season and now is that I think there seems to be, from an outsider's point of view, a breakdown in the relationship between Valérien Ismaël and the supporters at West Bromwich Albion, because they are just not buying into what he's serving up for them. I've been to a few Albion games to commentate on this season that I can't figure out what they're trying to be, what their style is. I don't know if they're a passing team. I don't know if they're a pressing team. I just don't see an identity with them. And you almost like when you read post-match interviews and reports, and as soon as Valérien Ismaël says that he was happy with the performance, the default with me, even as a non-West Brom fan, is that, well, that must have been complete garbage then if he thinks it was okay, because they're just not. I mean, they're falling behind in the league, aren't they? I mean, they look like they're struggling at the moment to hold on to a playoff place. And at the start of the season, you said, yeah, they'll be there or thereabouts for the top two, but just doesn't seem to be happening.
No, it's. Obviously, I haven't been on the show yet this season, so I can't fall back on any comments that Jonathan may have made. But for me, at the time in the summer, when I know he did a good job at Barnsley, but it felt like it didn't feel like the right appointment for me. It never did. I mean, I think you're seeing that now with the unhappiness from the fans as well. I mean, me personally, I know we're going back in time a bit, but I think somebody like Chris Wilder would have been more ideal for them than Ismaël. I haven't saw much of the highlights from yesterday, but from what I've read and the way that a lot of Albion fans on the Facebook have been talking about it, I don't get it. Then I don't get what game he was watching if that's the case. Obviously, the cup isn't priority for them this season, but it's still disappointing when you don't want to lose any game of football at the end of the day. You take it that you're more than likely not going to get a cup run in a season, or you are going to lose games throughout the season, but you don't want to lose any game of football. And I think the performance more than the result is what is angering the fans of a lot of these games recently. It just doesn't feel like it's there. Like you said, it just doesn't. There's performances where they're winning games, but I think it's more out of teams that are giving them respect in that league as well. I think it's more of a case of that they're getting leads in games and holding on to them. But I don't get it. I mean, I'm surprised, but I know they're in the top six. But for me, I think it would have been a pretty safe bet that he would have been gone by now, because I just don't get it, to be honest with you, Ben. I really don't. I think even if they do get promotion, I don't think it's going to be the right goal to take them forward anyway. So you're going to be back to square one in the summer, because the performances that he's been giving them so far from his game plans aren't very encouraging.
Absolutely, and you know, it always seems to be it's Norwich and West Brom swapping with each other.
Yeah.
In the Premier League Championship, you throw Fulham into that mix as well, for sort of the last couple of seasons, and Fulham look like they're going to be sort of there or thereabouts, along with Bournemouth at the top of the table. But West Brom, I mean, they go to QPR on Saturday, who've been one of the real surprise packages and success stories so far this season. And I'm thinking back to the game at the Hawthorns earlier in the season, West Brom winning that 2-1, but they had to come from behind to do it. It just wasn't convincing. So West Brom in fourth, QPR in fifth. I mean, I couldn't, in all good consciousness, if that's even the correct term, even speaking as a, I suppose I'm a neutral. I can't make a case for West Brom going down at QPR and winning that game, even though they're ahead of them in the table.
Well,
I just
no,
don't. I just don't see it.
I think this is where you've made the point there, where you're saying that QPR do look like the surprise package. But I think with Mark Warburton, they've got a manager there or head coach there where he looks like he's got a plan when he's playing games. I think Ismail, from me personally, as a Wolves fan, I'm sure that you have as a Villa fan as well. We've had managers in the past where you're playing games and you're watching it and you're thinking, what's the plan here? How are we going to win the game? Let alone a plan B. There doesn't seem to be a plan A. I think with the players that they've got, you are going to get moments in games where you're going to pop a goal in or you're going to do something to win a game. But it's as you say, like QPR, I don't think you'll get many bookmakers that will be backing the baggies. If I'm going to be honest with you, I think QPR look like a team that know what they're doing when they go onto the pitch and that they've got players that can hurt you. And I think the manager knows how to utilise that best. May not be the case at Albion.
I want to say hi to Sean, who has sent us in a message on Facebook. Stay tuned, Sean, because we will be getting to your question very shortly. But we are at the moment reacting to the action that we've seen, heard and reported on over the weekend in the FA Cup. We come on to Birmingham City, and Gav, we as I say, if you just joined in, Gav and I did radio for over a decade ago, when we would talk about these kind of things, particularly with Birmingham City, and I should be over the moon with what happens at Birmingham City as an Aston Villa fan. It seems to me, again, and obviously going out of the FA Cup against Plymouth after extra time, against a team, although doing well in League One, which Plymouth have been doing all season, Birmingham City didn't have a shot on target in 120 minutes. Against a team from a lower league, which I think that's borderline criminal, quite frankly, from a team playing at home in a cup competition. And it's not as if they've got Deeney, they've got Jukovic. They should have firepower, but it just seems to me that they go through this cycle of. They get to the point where they just can't carry on anymore the way they're going. We saw it obviously last year with the Aitor Karanka thing, and it got so toxic there that they had to make a change. Lee Bowyer comes in, you get the new manager bounce. They finished the season really well. Didn't start this season too badly either, but it's slowly but surely it's kind of leveled off. It's started to flatline again now for Birmingham City. And, yes, they're making, we'll come on to the transfer activity shortly, but it just, they can't keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
year in, year out. And it's, you keep circling the drain, eventually you're going to go down it. And I think there was one match, and I forget who it was against. It was a good couple of months ago. I do remember now. It was Nottingham Forest. They lost 3-0 at home. And congratulations to Forest, by the way. Fantastic result today. And Steve Cooper's doing a tremendous job there. He'd just come in at the time at Forest, and Forest had won 3-0. And Lee Bowyer said afterwards, he said a lot of these boys, and he was particularly talking about the defence, he said a lot of these boys have had to be involved in a relegation scrap on the last day of the season on more than one occasion. And then he paused and he said, "Today I saw why."
Yeah. Well,
and I thought, okay. Now, if you're one of those players at the back, and we can roll out the names, we can say Morris and Carlan, George Friend, who got sent off in the game yesterday as well. You're hearing your manager publicly say that. You're thinking, hang on. Manager don't fancy us here at the back. And it's probably true. It's probably very true what Lee Bowyer has said. But, confidence is a fragile thing, particularly in football. And, you just feel. I think they'll be all right. I think they've got enough in the bank from the good start to the season that they've had, but it ain't going to be fun viewing come the end of the season. For Birmingham City,
it's crazy, really, isn't it? I mean, we haven't done a show with each other for about 4 to 5 years now. Nothing's really changed.
Nothing has changed. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Changed at St Andrews.
Yeah, we could play a tape. We could play a tape of the old things that we talked about and discussed. Edit out names, but the situation is still the same. And I think that's kind of where we're at. And I've heard Blues fans. I've seen it on Twitter. I've heard Blues fans say, they literally do not know where the next win is coming from, and it's Preston away on Saturday, of course. Yeah. So we've reacted to the action, and there's still one tie to go in the third round of the FA Cup. It's at Old Trafford, Monday night, 7:55 kickoff, and it always seems to be in the third round. I don't know why. But it's Manchester United against Aston Villa. And usually, Gav, and we mentioned Sean, who is watching us right now. He said, what do you think of Villa's chances tomorrow against Man United? Well, give you the answer, Sean. Usually when the draw comes out, be it either at Villa Park or Old Trafford, Manchester United in the third round, as a Villa fan, you just go, oh, not again. Not again.
We have those with Wolves as well. It's a lot of the time it's Stoke for some reason. Seems to get Stoke in the third round.
Didn't this year? Didn't feel like that this year.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, all right, I fancy a bit of this. Sort of Stevie G going to Old Trafford for the first time as a manager, and knowing that Villa have gone to Old Trafford and won earlier this season anyway, so they'll have that in the bank, and the absolute turmoil it seems. That's happening at Manchester United with Ralph Rangnick, and
they can go there and win. They can go there and win.
Well, this is the thing, right? And I always say here in the Midlands, we are proper football fans. We support proper football clubs. We don't hunt glory. We don't change our minds. We don't look to who's top of the league and who we're going to support. We stick with who we support, and that's as where it goes. So when you see a team and a club like Man United struggling, the instinct is to kind of laugh at it, and it's kind of like, look at the state of Man United. This is great. This is. And then you think, no, I grew up watching a great Man United side with a great manager who always found a way, and as much as that kind of hurt and was irritating at the time, you kind of respect it, but. If you're talking about a top club, right? Top clubs don't sack the manager mid-season for a start. I mean, you can debate all night long, is it the right decision with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? I think that had reached a point where it was untenable, of course. But your Manchester United Football Club, and the best you can do is appoint somebody for 6 months.
Yes.
Now, Ralph Rangnick might be the best thing since sliced bread, but you're only giving him 6 months. This is Manchester United.
Well, this Villa is something I was discussing.
Villa felt they had to make a change. We lost 5 games on the bounce. Yep, go on.
Sorry, Ben. I was just going to say. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think there's a slight delay, but I was just going to say, for me, I think a lot of this has got to go with the owners and whoever's in charge of reporting at Man United store. Wouldn't the alarm? I was discussing it with somebody the other day. Actually, wouldn't the alarm bell start ringing for you when somebody agrees to come for 6 months, but they've got no design on keeping the job and they want to have a sporting technical director role or whatever it's called? I mean, it seems bizarre, especially for someone like Man United, as you said as well, who usually will be more concrete. I know that they've had Alex Ferguson there for that amount of time, but it just seems like they've not got that puzzle piece in there to get it to stick, and to there seems to be this thing there as well where every manager they're appointing, there seems to be player friction as well. There's one player in particular there that I think causes a lot of it, who I'm very surprised is still there, in Paul Pogba. looking back 5-6 years now, do you think they may regret getting rid of David Moyes? Looking at the success that he's had at West Ham now and how he's got them playing, who knows? But it seems like a bizarre arrangement from the start, really, and I think a lot of it's got to go down to the blame of the owners. But as you say, for tomorrow night, I think there is no reason why you can't go there and win at all. I mean, we showed you how to do it last week. Other teams, Newcastle, I don't know how they didn't come away with 3 points in that game, because I think they absolutely bossed the game against Manchester United as well. It's a time where
Villa did win.
Yeah, of course,
Villa did win
as well. You went there and won as well.
Dean Smith's last win.
Yeah.
So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Villa could get a result. It has to be finished on the night, of course, which is, I think that's a good thing this year, the FA Cup, particularly in the third. That's a side issue. But yeah, so the difference is United made a change, faffed about with it, got a guy in who is supposed to be one of the best coaches in the world, but you only can have him for 6 months until they can get who they really want. Villa went and got Steven Gerrard, and they went and got Steven Gerrard without any hassle or fuss whatsoever. The kind of way that, as a Villa fan, Villa generally don't do business, particularly over the last decade or so, with going through the hell of that was the latter years of the Randy Lerner sort of regime. Everything was kind of dilly-dallies, and you don't get things over the line, and then there's a breakdown in communication, and you're left sort of wondering what might have been. They identified who they wanted, they went and got him, and there had been a positive start. Back-to-back defeats against Chelsea, quite frustrating against Brentford, but I think the Brentford defeat will be one of those ones that Steven Gerrard will look at and go, yeah, I learned a lot about these players that I've been given here today, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to go and change it. And so far, we're only 9 days in, but Villa seem to have pulled off the coup of the transfer window in the early part of the window, and that we're going to get onto, obviously, moving the conversation onto transfers now. A mate of mine texted me, said Philip Coutinho, and I said, what about him? He said he's going to Villa. I said, stop, shut up.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen. And it happened very quickly and very easily. And I think this is the difference that we're seeing. Dean Smith, bless him, love him, one of our own. He couldn't have got a player anywhere near the level of Philip Coutinho, in particularly in January. So we're seeing now what the plan is with Steven Gerrard, and he's got him alone is going to be able to attract the kind of players that Villa feel that they need to get to the next level. I'm not saying competing yet for the Champions League or titles or anything like that. That's silly talk. But what they want to do now, they've gotten the hang of staying in the Premier League since coming back up. They want to avoid being a team that languishes in mid-table for sort of 3 or 4 seasons. They want to keep looking up and looking forward, and that's what they're going to get with Steven Gerrard right now. And it's very exciting. Well, I think it's very exciting.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you have a few people who come out and say, well, if he was any good, why was Barcelona letting him go? Or they're saying that. But for me, personally, I think it's a brilliant piece of business. I mean, a lot of the factor of him going there, I think, was due to his relationship with Steven Gerrard.
Of course.
Barcelona are paying the majority of his wages as well. You've got him there and you've got the option to buy rather than obligation. There's obviously that hole there since Grealish has left, and I don't think Kemi Buendia is going to be the answer yet for you with that hole there. So, I mean, for me, I think it's a cracking bit of business. I mean, it's a non-loss for Villa, really, in my eyes. And it's £30 million, isn't it, to make it permanent in the summer?
Yeah.
On standards nowadays, that's not a lot whatsoever. I mean, the potential replacement for Grealish cost 8 or 9 million more than that for yourself. So it's a good bit of business for me. If you can get any part of the form that he had when he was at Liverpool, I think he's going to be a very valuable asset for Villa this season. And I think, as I said, with Wolves, we had that little number 10 magician man that isn't quite there yet that can unlock the key going forward. for any team, really. You're never going to say no to someone who could potentially be a goal-scoring, goal-making midfielder, and you could have that in Coutinho. And also, I don't know if you saw the last hour as well, another addition that's possibly coming into the door at Villa Park, which is another left field one, which, well, I don't know where that came from, because I thought it was looking like he was going to be going to Newcastle, but it looks like that you've prized Luca Dean from Everton.
Yeah, that does seem to be in the offing as well. And did I see a link with Basuma of Brighton?
Yes, I saw that. That wouldn't be a shabby bit of business either as well.
No, I don't think so either. So yeah, there's a lot to be positive about without wanting to get overexcited. I think we've seen these kind of fall apart in the past. So other things that are doing the rounds locally with the transfer window. We mentioned him earlier on. Adama Traore to Spurs. Now, the thing about Traore is, and I can speak of Adama Traore from a Villa fan's point of view. We had him for that year, the year we went down, actually, when he was a youngster on loan from Barcelona. A better player and a more mature player in his time at Wolves. I don't think anybody can argue with that. But I still feel, and you'll be more qualified than me, I still feel that he should have been by now more than a one-trick pony with his pace. I think he should have. He should now have developed into the player that Barcelona were trying to build. And I just feel, and there's always the worry is that you've got him, you're wanting more from him, and then he could go somewhere and then become that player, and then you think, oh, what do we do?
Yeah,
why have we done that?
I'll just be frank now. Personally, I would have got rid of the summer.
Okay.
Especially now where you've got people coming through, like we've got Trincao from Barcelona, who looks very promising. It looks a lot more consistent than Traore. I think this is the key word that you're going to have with him as well. You've got players like Pedro Neto coming back. We've got Juan Ki-Chan, who is out for another couple of weeks, but we've got him who can play out wide. Daniel Pedence. I just feel like it's not going to happen for him at Wolves. I really don't. I mean, like you said, it should have been clicking by now, especially after that season he had when he was in the Europa League. He really looked like he was taking that march forward and he was becoming more consistent. And he looked like someone that was a 50 million plus player. But now I think it's not. I don't think it's going to happen. For me personally, he could go to Barcelona or he could go to Spurs tomorrow, and I could be eating humble pie in 2 years' time, and I could be saying, "What did we do that for?" But I just don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's going to happen at Wolves. I think he's seen that with his body language a lot as well.
I think you're right. I mean, if you look at it, logically, when I think of Adama Traore, Wolves, I think of the player that beat Manchester City on his own at the Etihad a couple of seasons ago. And I think it was. I think Wolves did the double over City that season. I think he was. I think he was influential in the game at Molineux as well. And I think that's Adama Traore. So to have not taken that on, there is a feeling of a potentially sort of a wasted opportunity. I mean, if it goes to Wolves, if it goes to Spurs, I mean, what kind of transfer fee would you think Wolves would get for Traore? Particularly if you go to somewhere like Spurs.
I think from what I've read, it's going to be what we paid for him, 20 million, and that's because it's all speculation, really. But from what I've read, he's only got 18 months left on his contract now. It runs out in July 2023. I think there's been issues with the salary he wanted. We did offer him, from what I've read, we offered him the wages that he wanted, but I think there was an issue with release clauses as well in the contract, which also is, for me, a bit of an alarm bell. I don't know why you'd need a release clause in a contract. God only knows. If you've got a plan to stay somewhere for another 4 years, that's another point for another day. It isn't going to be much more than what we paid for him. I think it was £18 million we paid Middlesbrough for him. And at the moment, it's looking around 20, 24 million. Look, I mean, we've got players that are coming back. As I said, Pedro Neto, if he can rekindle his form before he got injured, he's towards the player Adama Traore is in my eyes. I mean, Traore does give you a good game, but it's a flip of a coin whether it's going to be in 5 or 6 games' time or if it's going to be 2 games in a row. I think that's what you're going to get with him. With the players that we've got there now, I think there's more potential for consistency. And I think from just the vibes that you get from the place as well, I don't think the manager's sold on him either. I really don't. I mean, it seems to be a case of out, in for runs of games that we're having. And there's players that are cementing places in the team for him now. So that tells you that I don't think the manager's completely sold either. There's been talk as well. It's, as I say, it's all speculation and rumors. I mean, I think there's talk of if Ousmane Dembélé leaves Barcelona, they're interested in having him back, and there's a potential straight swap deal for Trincao there as well, which wouldn't be bad business from Wolves. So I think he is what he is in my eyes now. I don't think he's going to be much more that you're going to get from him.
Where are Wolves in terms of FFP? Because
this is the
thing. In terms of spending power, I mean, and you don't generally splash the cash in January anyway, unless you're desperate, I think. But we were told, and the numbers are there for all to see, that sort of Fosun are up there amongst the very richest. I mean, not in Man City, now Newcastle kind of territory, but enough to compete. And I mean, you mentioned the lad. So they paid a lot of money for Silva, which was sort of eye catching at the time, given how young he is. But it's not a hive of transfer activity these days, Wolves. So I just wonder. Are they given the run that they had in the Europa League and everything a couple of seasons ago? Do you think they're just a little bit cautious about things like FFP maybe?
I think you've took the words out of my mouth. I think that's what they are being at the moment. I think they're being very cautious. The summer before last was a hefty window. They spent upwards of 130, 140 million. It sounds minuscule compared to what you got your Man Cities and Chelsea's paying now. But I think they're being very careful on what they can do, because obviously Man City and Chelsea and Manchester United generate a hell of a lot more revenue than Wolves do from other avenues away from football as well. We don't have that, so I think it's more of, like, as you said, they're being cautious. I think if the right player came up at the right price, they wouldn't have a problem paying it. But I don't think they're going to go out there and they're going to spend 45 million pounds on a player again, unless it's going to be the right fit. I mean, Semedo goes under the carpet a lot as well because of the Silva fee, but that was the same amount of money for Nelson Semedo that we paid for Silva. It was around 38 million pounds. So for those two players, you're looking at 76, 77 million pounds. I think it's a case of them just being, as you said, very cautious. I don't think they want to go out there and spend it willy-nilly. I think they're trying to be very savvy with how they spend it. I mean, a lot of owners nowadays, they aren't footballing people. It's more of a business to them. But I think they're making a case of gaining more football knowledge from the correct people and then spending it correctly rather than, as you say, go out and spend it willy-nilly. I mean, there's always rumours being linked. We were talking about that number 10 midfielder. Renato Sanchez is coming up again this window, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's more of a, as you said, I don't think that's a signing that you're going to be making in January. I think it'll be like a summer transfer more than anything. I think it's more of a case now. I think they want to consolidate, make sure that we just keep that steady mid-table position, because I think that was the aim at the start of the season, if I'm going to be honest. Bringing players back on loan from Birmingham and other places, Cardiff and Ryan Giles and Dion Sanderson, as cover for people that have left for the African Cup of Nations and through injuries as well. And I think it's a case of just seeing where we are at the end of the season and kicking on from there. I think it runs every 3 years, doesn't it? The cycle for FFP. So after this season, it'll be the third or fourth season we've been in there now. So I think you have a bit more freedom, but I think they're just taking that air of caution at the same time as well.
Okay, fair enough. Moving into the Championship, regarding the transfer window, the news this week that West Bromwich Albion have brought in a striker, Daryl Dyke, centre forward from Orlando in the MLS, 21 years of age, paid around about £7.5 million for him, which for West Bromwich Albion, that's a lot of money. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably seen as not. We go back to what we said earlier with this. I don't watch MLS. I don't follow US soccer, as they'd call it. There's the potential of getting a really good player in if you know what you're doing. My problem is not necessarily from our point of view with Dyke. My problem is I don't know what kind of team is it going to work successful? I don't know. I simply do not know.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I think he's brought him in because he was a familiar face, because he spent on loan last season on loan with him at Barnsley, didn't he? So he actually was quite prolific last season. He scored a fair amount of goals, and he influenced a lot of games from what I've read and from what I've watched as well. But the problem is, as you said, what's the style of play or the game plan? How is he going to fit in with what they've already got? I mean, they haven't got bad players in that position for that league already, so I wouldn't have really saw that as a priority for Albion. I mean, you've got players like Carl Lundgren and Phillips who can put the ball in the back of the net in that league. I think, for me personally, I think they would have been better off getting some sort. I know it's a lot of gold dust now, and we've been speaking about players, and it's a position that we need as well. But I think a creative midfielder would have been ideal for them, just to give them a bit something extra. But as you said, I don't know really. I mean, it's up in the air for it's up in the air for how they're going to be in the second half of the season. Will one player make a difference if he comes in and scores 15 goals? Who knows? But at the same time, it could go the other way.
Absolutely. And moving on to Birmingham City, this is our last port of call for the transfers. Ted Mengi has come in, another youngster from Manchester United who's going to be given experience, and that's the way that Blues are going to have to do things. They haven't got the proverbial pot to what in. We know that. That's just the way it is. So it's going to have to be a mixture of loan players from other clubs. If they're going to come from Premier League clubs, they're going to be very young and very sort of inexperienced. So when you're looking at the lower reaches of the Championship, you're looking for experienced heads. You're not going to get them on loan as youngsters from the Premier League. What you also can do, though, is you can bring your own players through. And the latest addition to Birmingham City making his debut over the weekend, the latest member of the Bellingham family coming onto the field at Birmingham City, it's Joe Bellingham. And if he can be half the success of his brother Jude, then Blues will be okay. That's the problem, though, isn't it, Gav? Because the club has more or less run itself on the money made off the sale of Jude Bellingham.
Well, this is the scary territory, isn't it? Where you've got these promising players coming through, and it's horrible to say, but as soon as they have that bit of potential, they're going to be snatched away from Blues, the position that they're in at the moment. I think the centre half for Manchester United was just a straight swap back in for Sanderson going back to Wolves. I think they just needed that extra man in there to make that back three a bit more pacey. Also talk as well about, I think Amad Diallo from Manchester United might be going there on loan. I think half the team's going to be Manchester United players by the end of the window. But as you say, if it works for them, that's the avenue they've got to go down to get players in. Then by all means, to go ahead and do it. I don't really. It's a funny one with Blues, really, isn't it? Because I mean, they're going to bring these players in, fine, but wherever they're going to be in June when they've played out the skins for them, if they do, and then they're never going to keep them. You're back to square one again, isn't it? And I think this is, as we're saying, it's the same old 5-6 years ago, really. It's like a revolve about the players in and then going out, and the players that you're bringing in on loan, you have no potential of keeping. And it's almost as if they're in that limbo stage in the Championship now. I don't think they're going to go down. I think it's a possibility, but I personally don't think they are going to go down. But going back to the original point of Joe Bellingham, as you say, if he has half of the potential that he shows that his brother does, who's to say that somebody isn't going to come in and offer them a sizable chunk of money and they're going to be walking out the door?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you talk about you don't think they'll go down, and I think they've got enough. They've got enough points in the bag at the moment. A purveyor of doom and gloom about Birmingham City, which I'm sure he's going to come back up me. Oh, you're just saying this because you're a Villa fan, ha ha ha. But we've seen enough evidence over the last few years that the EFL have got Birmingham City under a microscope. We know they're not afraid to sanction Birmingham City and their owners for their operations, and we've seen what they've done with the likes of Derby County. Now, Blues have got enough points in the bank, I think, to be okay this season. A lot of that is the fact of what's happened to sort of clubs like Derby, because I've seen a bit of Derby, and on the field, Derby give everything that they've got for Wayne Rooney, and it seems a bit unfortunate that it's off the field, which has put them sort of where they are. But in terms of spirit and enthusiasm, you'd rather watch Derby than you would Birmingham City at the moment. So again, and the Blues fans, they might be battle hardened, they might be very weary of it all, and as we said probably about half an hour ago, how long can this continue? It will continue as long as these owners are in place, and that's it. It's as simple as that. And the problem is, I mean, we've all had of our clubs times when we want rid of the owners and we want it to freshen up and we want to move to sort of the next level. We mentioned Randy Lerner. From my point of view, as good a job for a long time as Steve Morgan did at Wolves, it needed to change, and you kind of now got what you've got with kind of Fosun and the financial power that they have. My worry with Blues, and I don't want to sound like I'm worried all the time, is that because the owners do not care, they literally do not care about the club and its supporters, they're not going to be interested in selling it, even if somebody comes along. Even if somebody comes along with a plan to take it over and sort of move it forward, and because they're out there in Hong Kong and parts of China, they don't answer to anybody. As long as they keep the Hong Kong Stock Exchange satisfied with what they're doing, Birmingham City, what they do between 3 and 5 on a Saturday afternoon, don't matter.
Well,
and that's where the fans are being let down.
Yeah, this is the annoying thing, really, isn't it? Where people turn around and say, "Sell the club," but how do people that aren't passionate about the club sell it to somebody?
Exactly.
And who's going to want to buy it at the same time as well when there's this debt and this windfall of money that needs to be pumped into the club that's caused a backlog now? I mean, I think it's no secret that when you buy a football club, the cheapest amount of money that you put out is when you buy the football club, and then you've got other factors that come into it as well. And it's from a business standpoint, who's going to want to take that on? It's going to be hard to find someone to. You hope, you wish, and you do. Look, we all have football allegiances, and we all give each other a bit of banter, and we all have a laugh with each other. But at the end of the day, it's a fan base and a football club. It's part of a community, that's suffering now because
Yeah.
of incompetent owners. The EFL have got them under a microscope, yes, fair enough, but at the same time, the EFL have got to take a lot of the blame for letting this continue as well. Obviously, it's their money; they can do what they want with it, but I think there has to be more put in place to make sure this doesn't happen. Because I'll be honest with you, Ben, I think that this happens a lot more especially in the EFL than we realise, but it's just not being highlighted. And I think this is where we need the Football Association to really step up now and put those checks in places to make sure that the right owners are in there. And fingers crossed, you do hope that someone does come in and buy the Blues eventually. Because look, the Midlands fan base, we all love to rib each other. We all love to, as I said earlier, have that banter and have that match day. I'd love to see a point in time where all four are going to be in the Premier League again. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but you do hope it does. Because
it's not even funny having a dig either from a banter point of view.
Yeah,
it's not funny. I'm bored with it as far as that's concerned, you know. And I think there's a danger of that coming into play as well. We have reached the end. It's been fun. Thank you very much indeed, Gary Longthorne. Welcome to the team here on the West Midlands Football Live.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. But the West Midlands Live podcast, you can watch it all again on YouTube. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. Tuesday nights, the Box to Box podcast, the view from a national perspective. You can find out all the latest news from your area of the country here in the Midlands on the Birmingham TV website, and there's going to be some interesting changes coming forward. I'm led to believe. We'll be back next Sunday, looking back at the action as we return to league football from all of this FA Cup malarkey. For Gary Longthorne and me, Ben Ellis, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this Sunday evening. Goodbye.